everybody. Bonesaw here again. Um, so, another video. Today, I thought this would, since I'm kind of on a roll here, kind of going with this one theme, I decided to do another video about the Marvel Universe, movie universe right now. This one is going to be about just the future of superhero movies in general. Looking at it from a Marvel standpoint, this stuff can apply to DC too, but for now, just focusing on Marvel. So, first things first, let's do a little bit of a quality check here. We're gonna try to compare and contrast the two most prominent phases I think people talk about and use to compare things to one another. Um, and that will be Phase 3 and Phase 4. So let's start with Phase 3. Yeah, there we go. So first thing, this phase started in 2016 when we had Captain America Civil War and Doctor Strange. Both pretty good. Civil War, of course, is in my top 10. Doctor Strange, it was alright. I thought it was pretty alright. Looked pretty cool. But, yeah, it takes a lot. I think that was like a thing. It actually takes a lot from this animated movie that was made way before this. So, um, but it was still fun. It was still fun. Then in 2017, we get Guardians Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Thor 3, Thor Ragnarok. So this is the first Spider-Man movie that they made for Tom Holland. This is after, Andrew Garfield's 2-movie run, which also was that was after the 3-movie run by Tobey Maguire. Um, Guardians 2, again, pretty alright. Same thing with Thor 3. Me personally, I honestly prefer the older Spider-Man movies. I give, I'll probably make that my next video, to be honest, because I don't know. I really don't care for these. I don't know. This one was okay. Spider-Man Homecoming, it was fine, but you know, I've got some views on it. Anyway, foreshadowing. Next, 2018, we got Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, this is where we run into a little bit of a problem. So, Avengers Infinity War was a massive, massive movie. And I think you can start to kind of notice that the other movies are taking a bit of. Like, it's taking a toll on the other movies a little bit. Like, you can see it in Black Panther and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, I actually had fun watching both of those movies, Black Panther and Ant-Man and the Wasp. But Black Panther, like the ending fight, you can notice that just the effects, or at least like just the fight scene looked like a video game. Like pretty much, it just looked pretty rough, to put it lightly. I mean, you know, I think the message of the movie was really, really wonderful, but yeah, that ending fight scene and just some of the CG in that movie is a little questionable, and how it flows, it just doesn't really feel like. To me, it doesn't really like. I see the message, but it doesn't really feel too distinguishable from any of these other Marvel movies, to be quite honest. That's just me, but I saw what it could have been, and it was like, oh, I'd love to say it was great because of that, but, eh, oh. It was good, though. It was a good movie. Ant-Man and the Wasp, though, you know, I had fun. I don't know why people give it so much hate. I think it's just because this was kind of, you know, sandwiched between Infinity War and the next movie. I honestly thought it was pretty fun. It's pretty goofy and dumb, but like, Paul Rudd is like playing that character. He's playing a goofy guy. He's not a dummy. He's just a goofy guy. So it's gonna be a goofy movie. Um, but not that goofy movie. Nothing can top that movie. Anyway, you know, start to see some of the quality differing a little bit here. Getting a little testy. So next year, 2019, This is when we get Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, this is definitely where the burnout, I think, was most noticeable. All right. So, Avengers Endgame, it's good. It's not my top 10 MCU. It's just like, you know, it's fine. It's a comfortable movie, but it's just like main thing I take away from that movie is the end fight. That was cool as heck. All the time traveling stuff, that was cool that they explained it and did it all like that. But like, mainly it's that end fight scene I think that everybody really remembers from that movie. To be honest, like the stuff building up to that, it's funny and whatever, but it's just that ending fight scene, man. Like, come on, that's the coolest part of that movie. It's just the spectacle. That's the real appeal. Here's where I really have a problem with this. I know what people say about Captain Marvel. I don't really, you know, I don't know. I don't think anybody, I don't know. It's just, everybody has such negative stuff to say about that movie. I think it's okay. It's just an okay Marvel movie, but it could have been great. That's like another video maybe in the future. Could be shorter. This one's probably going to be a little bit long. But Captain Marvel just, it was really awkward, I think, to sandwich it in between Infinity War and Endgame. Um, and I just think that they didn't really do that character like how they should have, if that made sense. I don't mean to come across as like a condescending, like, you know, nerd, but like, I feel like they could have taken a page out of the Earth's Mightiest Hero show and made her a sort of like an aspiring hero. Like the stuff you see in Spider-Man Homecoming, that they could have done that to her. Like instead of making it take place before all of this and she's just got like superiority when it comes to, how much she's been around, saving lives or whatever, maybe make it so that, it's like another interim movie like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and like this is a current thing that's happening. She knows about the Avengers and she looks up to them, and then she gets into an accident that gives her powers or something like that. Like, I hate to be so dramatic with like and sweeping with the changes I would like to make to that movie. I have another way of fixing it, which is that other video. But like, I just like her more as like an underdog. I don't really like her as like this sort of like, like she just comes across as a bit cocky. That's it. I think she could, if you like reworked her character in that way, I feel like people would really connect and really be like, this is this is this is something I see. Like, 'cause you get Spider-Man, who's like, he wants to prove himself, but then he realizes that he doesn't really need to do that. He can just stay in his own lane and stay in New York and solve problems there. But then maybe with Captain Marvel, you take that other angle where she is trying to like impress the Avengers and get on the team. Like, I don't know. I really like that version of the character where she just is a lot more humble, I would say. That's it. I'm that's all. I don't know. It's like it's okay movie. It's an okay movie though. It's like all right, but And then Spider-Man Far From Home, which again, Spider-Man video. That thing is just so far off from that character. That is just, oh. I do not like that movie one bit. Of course, it's fun to watch, and you know, it's like cool to see the actors bounce off of each other and do their thing. But like, and it's very, it's high production value because it is a Spider-Man movie. But it's just such a mess. It's just Iron Boy Jr. in my opinion. It's like, oh, best superhero trilogy? Not anymore. you know, put your seatbelt on. Like, I don't know. It's just not good. But save that for another video. Anyway, and that was the end of Phase 3 right there. But let's get into the quality check for Phase 4. Here in 2021, this is post-pandemic. We got Black Widow, Shang-Chi, The Eternals, and Spider-Man: No Way Home. Now, here's where we run into some problems. Now we've got four movies in 1 year, and I would say that the casts for these are fairly large, and they're paying quite a bit of money for the stars involved. Um, that's not a bad thing. Everybody's got to make their living, but like, it's just the quantity of movies releasing in this 1 year. Like I like Shang-Chi. I liked like No Way Home, but like like the Eternals is just God. I feel like that was more along the lines of everybody's common consensus on what the Inhumans are. I actually think they're kind of cool, to be honest, the Inhumans and the Eternals. But like, just the way that they adapt them and put them into things, it is just a time waster for the X-Men and Fantastic Four, to be quite honest. And I just see it as like, ugh, this movie. Like, I'm talking about the Eternals right now. We'll get to Black Widow, but I'm just like, oh my god, what a drag. Like, now they're making it so that it's like, oh well, it's technically the movie that introduced adamantium, and it's like, oh God, I hope they don't do that. Like, I hope the fan base doesn't do that thing they do with tons of franchises like Star Wars or like, you know, like the older DC movies or like just like older Marvel movies, to be quite honest, where they like retroactively like rewrite history and start to say it's like the best thing ever when it's really not. Like, people should be learning from this. That's how we get good movies, not, you know, taking. It's just such a drag. I don't know. Maybe some of you know what I mean. I don't know. It just, it's hard to explain. It's just, I feel like that movie it needed more time in the oven if it were going to be a movie. But we'll get into that later. Black Widow, that was just like, Taskmaster stuff aside, if they had written that character, like if they had written Taskmaster well, I wouldn't have cared. I really like Tony Masters, or like, the original Taskmaster's name. I don't know if I got that right. But like, I don't really, I just don't see what the point is, Like, this character's out. I get you're setting up other characters, but like, they're all adjacent to her, you know? Like, she's the main character. So, to set up these other characters is kind of like it's secondary to her. You were saying like, oh, we're trying to build a universe, but we're making this like this character and all these other people, just we're making them secondary to her. Like they don't matter as much as she does. And it's just like, ugh, you know? I like those characters. I wish we could see more of them. Just kind of a I don't know. That's all I have for that. It was also just really kind of a drag to see. But let's not forget, this is where Marvel started doing TV shows as well. So now we've got all this to worry about. Oh my God. Now, um, you've probably seen some YouTube videos that say like, well, technically you actually don't really have to watch any of this. I actually looked over and I pretty much agree. You actually don't really have to watch the TV shows. But like when they first started this, these were heavily advertised, and I mean they still are. So it's like, do I, don't I? Like these are, the pull for getting the streaming service. So, you got WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, and Hawkeye. Like, ugh, oh my god. WandaVision, first two episodes, maybe the third one, they were pretty good. And then, for me, it just dropped off. Loki, I saw the first two episodes of season one, thought they were pretty good. And then it just, like, I just totally dropped off. Because, like, I love Tom Hiddleston's dynamic with Owen Wilson, and like how it was supposed to be sort of like a time crime thriller, and then like it just turned into like this completely different thing that I really just wasn't invested in. It's like Loki trying to like change for the better, even though we already saw that on the big screen. We already saw him make that change. I don't know. I just didn't really see the point at a certain time. You got What If, which I'm pretty sure the general consensus on that show is that it is pretty bad. Um, had some good episodes in there, but like, ugh, just it's just they didn't really do as much with what they had as they could have. Thank goodness it seems like they're kind of switching from that and focusing on something like X-Men '97, or revitalizing their old cartoons from the '90s that people really like for the most part. We don't talk about X-Men season 5 because that's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, except for maybe that last episode. It's pretty terrible. Um, just ugh. Hawkeye, which it wasn't unpleasant, but again, kind of a snooze fest for me. Um, I thought the characters were charming. Like Hawkeye and Kate Bishop going to a Ren fair. That was pretty funny. Echo and Yelena wanting to myrtleize Hawkeye the entire show, while Kate Bishop is just like, oh my god, I'm your biggest fan. Like that's funny. And the dog is cool. And then you got the mafia dudes. It's like, yeah. And Kingpin shows up for 2 seconds. It's like, all right. And the swordsman was in there. Can't forget him. He's Hawkeye but with a sword. um, and yes, I did not forget about Falcon Winter Soldier, because that one, I actually really liked that one. I actually don't really have any problems with it. I thought it was pretty good. That's all I'll say about that. I know a lot of people don't really like that show. I feel like they kind of equate the entire show to the end speech, which is like, okay, you know, all right, like, but I liked it. I don't care. Anyway, and 2022, we get Doctor Strange 2, The Multiverse of Madness, which I had fun. A lot of people didn't like that because they saw the Illuminati die and John Krasinski was confirmed to not be the actual Reed Richards, and they teased the X-Men again, which really frustrated people for some reason. Like, I don't really get how they could have fit the X-Men into this, like at this point in time. I said, that kind of contradicts what I said before, but like, it didn't really make a whole lot of, like, how do they shove them in between all of this stuff? It's just like, ugh, you know? I don't know. I don't think they could have pulled that off reasonably. And then you got Thor Love and Thunder. That thing is a blunder. Not to play on the word. I mean, I kind of did, but Thor, just blunder. That is just nasty. Nasty work right there. Um, I don't mean that as a compliment. Like, I love the costumes. I love the colors. I love, the idea of Jane Foster as Thor. But they really, really did not do Gore the God Butcher good. And I have limited knowledge on that character, but he had very limited screen time that was meaningful. And I just saw that as just. And you got Thor, and he's juggling like three different things. He's got to stop Gore. He's thinking about his, how he lost his entire people, and then he's got like Jane Foster coming back, and he's trying to figure out like what to do with new people. And he goes to Olympus to talk with Zeus, and it's like, oh my god, he's got so much. And then to add on to that frustration, it just, God, movie ticket prices today, man. God. Anyway, then we got Black Panther 2, which I actually really like that movie. It is a very, very violent movie. Um, I was I don't know. Maybe I'm just a wimp. I don't know. But I thought it was really, really frightening sometimes, just with how much like fighting goes on. But that was a cool movie. That was a really cool movie. Ironheart, um, her suit at the end, it did look a little goofy, but like, I don't know if she would make the same suit as Iron Man. I don't mean, I'm kind of defending it, but like, I don't know. We'll see what the next suit looks like when she comes back, but like, that was fine. I did like that. I thought that that was kind of cool. I know a lot of people don't, or at least it seemed like a lot of people didn't really like that, but I liked how the Wakandans are like, they have like a special patrol of Wakandans now that have like super advanced like armor that allows them to fly and stuff. That's cool. That's freaking cool, man. Like and then like Shuri making that decision at the end of the movie, like with Namor, that was awesome. That movie was that was a slammer. That was epic. Um, thought that that was really cool, and I thought that I don't know, I thought that they did a good job with the whole tribute. They were really respectful, I thought, but um, yeah. But later in 2022, we get these three shows. So you get Moon Knight, which it was all right. Um, I think that character's pretty cool, but that show, it was all right. The ending happened. I didn't really like that. I think I said that in a video prior, but it just, oh. And as for timeline placement, I don't know exactly. I feel like people are placing it like in the 2020s. I don't know, but it might. You could theoretically like put it before the Avengers movie because I think like there's a line in the Avengers movie or something, or like one of the older MCU movies where they mention something happening in Egypt, and I'm like thinking like, oh well, it could be Moon Knight. I don't know. But that'd be cool to think that he was like way back then and there. But yeah, you got that. You got Miss Marvel, which I did watch that show too. I watched all of this. Miss Marvel just, I thought it was fun. I thought her whole family dynamic was fun. I thought it was pretty cringy when like I forget how she gets over there. Anyway, there's like a fight with like this kid who's wearing this like red bandana over his face or something. I thought like every second of him on screen was kind of cringy, not gonna lie. That's not him, that's not the actor's fault. I think that that's just the writing, to be quite honest, because they just made him make a bunch of pop culture references from what I remember, and then there was like the whole time travel thing, and then they changed her powers, which like, you know, it's really weird because you're already doing a niche character. Why would you change so much about the niche character in order to fit? Like, what are you trying to make it fit into? I don't know. I thought it was fun though. And then She-Hulk, which I had fun actually. I did have fun tuning in to watching it. um, I didn't hate it. Um, that was until the end, and I think that that was like the point. I think I had already come to that conclusion before, but that was the point where I really started to have a disdain for these Marvel shows. Because like you get to the end and it just made the whole show feel like lesser. I don't know, like the whole fourth wall break where she goes to fix the plot. Like I get that She-Hulk breaks the fourth wall, is convention with her character, but I just felt like, I just looked back and I'm like, was it really worth it to watch that whole thing? Like, and the Wrecking Crew too. They got disrespected. They got turned into a bunch of goobers with like super tools. I was just like, oh god, what a mess. I don't really care about bad CG. I just, I care about it being funny or entertaining. And at the end of the day, that show, it was fun for a bit, and then it just, yeah. That's all I have to say about that. Really not, I don't know. Maybe she'll get a chance to have a time to shine again, but yeah. But another thing that happened this year, which is special to 2022, is we got two special presentations. Now, sifting through all of this runtime, which I hate to bring up because that I don't feel like it's a totally real criticism. Because I mean, like, who's gonna watch it? We're gonna watch it. We're the fans, man. Anyway, Werewolf by Night. That was great. That was fun. I watched all this other stuff, and that was like, oh man, that was actually the first time I think in a while that I had fun watching one of these things. Um, it was short, it was sweet, it looked pretty cool. It was great. And then Guardians Holiday Special, that wasn't really as great, but it was still fun. Fun little holiday special. Maybe it didn't really feel too Christmassy in my opinion, but it was pretty funny to see Drax and Mantis kind of just being goofballs. But yeah, now 2022. So let's compare these phases together. So first we got phase 3, and there they all are. And then we got phase 4, and there they all are. Now, I hate to bring up runtime and all that, but you can definitely notice we've got a lot more stuff going on in phase 4. It is 7 movies versus the 11 movies, like 7 and 4 and 11 and 3. But, we got all these TV shows, and the thing with TV shows is that, like, first of all, they're all like these weird 8 or 9 episode TV shows. But then, like, TV shows just, they have much longer run times, and that can take a toll on the Marvel fans when you put this much stuff out there. But let's be honest, like, we're fans, we're gonna watch it, so, you know. Main criticisms, though, is that the quality definitely took a hit with how much stuff they were making at the same time. I feel like that is very fair to say. You can notice it in Phase 3 when they were kind of running into burnout because they had a really big movie, like an Avengers movie to make, and then the other two projects I think suffered in quality because of that. I would say that that's a fair thing to blame the drop in quality on. But then you get to Phase 4 and you got all this stuff running at the same time, and it's like, geez, like how thin are we stretching the staff? I don't care how many more people we're hiring, like, you know, when it comes to quality, like, what are we doing here? So, like, two flops in Phase 3, I would say the two flops that I would say are flops are Captain Marvel and Spider-Man. So we'll go ahead and gray those out. Now we're gonna look at Phase 4. We're gonna go ahead and gray everything that I think should be grayed out. This is just an opinion, but everything in there that I think was just ultimately a flop in a way. Presto! Look at that. I really think the only things worth watching were probably Shang-Chi, Spider-Man 3, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Doctor Strange 2, Black Panther 2, maybe Moon Knight, and the two specials. It just, the rest of that stuff, you know, one thing is the TV shows I don't think are really that worth watching, to be quite honest. And then just everything around those just kind of suffered in quality. We knocked out like almost half, it's 3 out of the 7, so it's not half technically, but we knocked out a good chunk of the movies in quality. So it's just, it's chow time, but what we're having for dinner is gruel. It's like, ugh. So, yeah, this is just a picture where we remove all of that. That's, trim the fat there. But how can it be saved? Well, here we have Phase 4. And now let's separate this. Let's organize this. So we got the shows, the movies, and the specials. So, the shows here are definitely the thing they tried to push forward a lot, and I think that this is the main contributor, to be quite honest, to the drop in quality. Because, like the movies, they've succeeded in the past, so, who's to say, like, why can't these shows, do just as good or something? Or, like, why can't the movies do as well as they once were? I think it's honestly, it's to blame on the shows because they just took up so much value and time and resources. It's just like, you know? So, how can it be saved? Well, I think, what if we turn these shows, instead of like 8 episode 360-minute nightmares, what if we turn them into specials? This was an idea I had a while ago. I was talking about it with a friend, just talking about nerd stuff, how we do that. But instead of making long running series, maybe turn these shows into like just an introduction to the character as like a special. So like turn them into Werewolf by Night. Just make it a short and sweet introduction. For something like Loki, it might be worth considering turning into a movie, but maybe you can also just turn that into a special. Just say this is what Loki's doing. I don't know. Like Falcon Winter Soldier, that could have been a special. Like all this stuff honestly could have just been like an hour long, to be quite honest. They could have figured out how to write it to be like that, I think. Personally, that's just me. People say that like, oh well, Falcon and Winter Soldier should have been Captain America 4. They could have done that too with that. That's what's so great about that show. But turn all these shows maybe into specials, just little specials. Just trim all that fat. So the great thing about that is that the actors can keep getting hired and they can keep working, but maybe we don't spend as much time on something that might become a flop in the future, just in case. It's just more practical and sustainable that way. It's just a win-win, I think. And then like I think what this would do to serve another purpose is like instead of having a bunch of stuff that is of varying length, size, quality, and importance with the MCU, the bigger stuff being the more important stuff when it comes to watching the Marvel movies and the small stuff being less important. Maybe, if we put it in that special format, we can have like a more consistent feeling, cohesive, long-running series. Instead of just multiple TV shows, turn that special format into one long-running TV show or something. Just like, oh, the new Disney Plus specials tab, just, you got a new Marvel special in there, well, bam, let's go ahead and watch that. Like, do it every few months or something. Like, because, they are filming a lot of these, but I feel like that would serve as a really big help to just, making it just a more welcoming experience for any old fans and new fans, or present fans. But, yeah. And then, another thing worth considering is maybe, since we're doing it with the shows, we could also do it with some of the movies, like Eternals, or Black Widow. Thor just was bad. They should probably really think about what they did wrong in there. But yeah, just maybe turn some of this stuff into specials too. That way we cut down on how much we're spending on making all this stuff. It's just a win all around. So current outlook on everything. I think the most important things they're trying to focus on right now are the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. And, they might still do a few Avengers things with Spider-Man, because, Spider-Man is probably one of their more profitable heroes. So, especially the X-Men. Moving into the new phases, everybody was saying, I think they're still kind of saying, like, oh, the next phase is going to be the supernatural phase or whatever. I don't know. I honestly don't think that that's necessarily a great idea because the supernatural characters, the main one that people really like is Doctor Strange. Just all the other ones kind of, like Scarlet Witch and Agatha Harkness. It's just like, oh, like it's not that they're bad. It's just that Doctor Strange is just so all-encompassing when it comes to what people think of as supernatural. So, like, I don't know. Are they gonna make a Doctor Strange show? I don't know. Or like people are mentioning, the Midnight Suns or whatever. It's like, they haven't built any of those characters, so how can they pull that off without, doing something like a special or something like that? But main thing is probably the X-Men, and I think they'll probably pull heavily from what they did in the cartoon, which might be a retread for a lot of fans who watched the old cartoon, like me. But I think it would be really cool to see it in live action. Like, I mean, it's just tons of fun to be had there. But yeah, I feel like they're focusing on the X-Men. Now, if they don't get it right with the X-Men, and they kind of fast track things, like I think they're doing with. Like, I saw Thunderbolts. I haven't seen Fantastic Four because it doesn't come out yet, but I feel like they're kind of fast tracking those two properties right now to try and get them in a place that works because they had to take a step back from their mass production of shows. If they don't get the X-Men right, I think that all of this stuff could suffer in turn, and it could be a very dark outcome ahead. Now, who knows? Maybe. And now I finally remember the name. But maybe, you never know. They did say that it's like still in limbo or it's like canceled or whatever. I think they said it was canceled, so I don't know. But maybe just maybe, we can get a Mahershala Ali Blade and he can bring us out of the sad and destitute sort of era that we're kind of trying to recover from right now. Who knows? Maybe we will get a second coming of the Blade effect. Who knows? But like for now, it's just seems like things are. We'll see how things go. We'll see what Marvel does, but that's just my idea. Thank you so much for watching. This is just kind of a little idea I had on how to organize and just make stuff, roll better in the universe. But um, it was a little bit of fun. More stuff to come. I think next video will probably be that Spider-Man thing I was going to talk about, and then maybe even after that, talk about Captain Marvel. And then, after all that is said and done, I think I might take a little bit of a break because I think that would be like 5 videos back to back or something. But yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Bye.